معكم بسان من غزة. احنا لسه عايشين، وانا متأكدة ان انتم خلال الايام الماضية سمعتوا عن الاضراب الشامل او يوم الاضراب العالمي اللي بيتم النداء فيه لمقاطعة الحركة الاقتصادية، المدارس، الجامعات، المواصلات، الدفع الالكتروني او اي وسيلة ثانية من وسائل الدفع. ليش هذا الإضراب مهم؟ هذا الإضراب مهم لأنه ببساطة بيحكي إنه كل العالم مجتمع على كلمة لا، وكل العالم مجتمع على إنه يجب إيقاف إطلاق النار بشكل دائم في قطاع غزة. هذا الإضراب موجع لأنه أحد أشكال التظاهر السلمي، ولكن بنفس الوقت اللي بيصعد، اللي بوجع الاقتصاد، وهو أكثر ما يؤلم السياسيين اللي مش سامعين ومش شايفين إرادة الشعوب بأنه لازم يتم إيقاف إطلاق النار في غزة. الإضراب أو يوم الإضراب العالمي أو الإضراب الشامل مش هيفقر البلد، مش هيوقع اقتصادها. عدم الإضراب أو الاعتراض عليه مش هيخلي البلد مزدهرة ومش هيخليها تصل القمر، ولكن ببساطة هذا اليوم بيوري إن العالم كله مجتمع على رغبة واحدة، وإنه في إرادة قوية بتحكي إنه لازم يتم إيقاف إطلاق النار في غزة. وبيهدد بضرب اقتصاد الشركات العظمى الكبرى الداعمة لهاي الإبادة الجماعية. الدول الكبيرة اللي بتدعم وبتبارك هذه الإبادة الجماعية اللي قاعدة بتصير بحق الفلسطينيين في قطاع غزة، واللي ببساطة وبكل بساطة بيمنعوا قرار إيقاف إطلاق النار عن طريق استخدام حق الفيتو أو عن طريق الصمت وعدم التصويت والدعوة لإيقاف إطلاق النار عالميا. فعشان هيك الإضراب العالمي والإضراب الشامل بصنع فرق. اصنعوا الفرق.
أسوأ لحظة لما تصحي تلاقي بيتك كله ركام فوق عليك.
الصاروخ لما ينزل بتفكر بينزل عليه.
كانت يوم مجزرة المستشفى المعمداني.
Today is the day 61 of the war in Gaza and we've been through terrifying things.
تطيحي من الرابع للثالث وولادك جنبك وبنتك الأطفال ما تلاقيهمش، فتربيهم وهيك تلاقيهم تحت التراب، يقول لك دفناهم.
احنا شفنا الشهداء قدام عينينا، يعني لما قصفوا المدرسة احنا قالوا المدارس مدارس انروا وكالة، قالوا امان وقعدنا فيها نأمن حالنا، راحوا لما قصفوها قدام عينينا كانت هذه اصعب لحظة، يعني شفنا الموت في عينينا، ايش كنا نتشاهد انا وبناتي الصبايا واولادي.
اصعب لحظة فعليا كانت يوم مجزرة المستشفى المعمداني. كان الاشي كتير صعب. كنا نعمل عمليات خارج غرف العمليات في مرات المستشفى، المرضى كان عدد كبير جدا. الامور كانت جدا صعبة ومأساوية في هذاك الوقت. حتى الان مش قادر اتخيل حجم الاصابات اللي كانت موجودة داخل العمليات، لانه كانت كثير كبيرة.
يعني احنا مرضى وزي هيك طلعنا من مجمع الشفاء واليهود حصرونا في الدبابات وحملوا على الدبابات، والنسوان الكبار في السن يجرين والكل يجري والكبار والصغار كله، يعني ما الحرب كثير دمار، الدبابات منشقة والقصف القناصات منشقة، ناس مرضى يعني تقدرش تجري.
قصفونا والغاز والفسفور وطلعنا وتخنقنا وقعدنا نجري هيك بشعارنا وبحالنا والشهداء قدامنا والجثث مقطعة.
لما قصفوا دار عمي أسوأ حاجة، والشظاير بتطلع بالسماء وخوفنا يعني، وطلعنا برا الدار. لما طلعنا برا الدار وسبنا أواعينا وأغراضنا، بس جبنا هوية الميلاد وطلعنا بأواعينا اللي علينا يعني. لما نقصف بيتي
احنا سمعنا الناس 3 انفار يخلوا احنا طلعنا، امي طلعت تصرخ على الحاره عشان تخلق الحاره وتحمي الحاره.
For me, the worst moment was when I left Gaza. And I was forced to leave Gaza in the 10th of November to the south via Salah ad-Din Road. It was dangerous, it was crowded, it was exhausting.
الحالة اللي احنا فيها ونبري بيوتنا وتدمير بيوتنا وهنا مشردين من غزة لخانونس.
Hi, I'm Mu'taz. You have been seeing me for the last 63 days covering what is happening here. The raw realities by my camera, my phone, and the words I'm saying about what is happening here. I'm asking you all, I'm asking humans, the human being, to act, to protest, to stop this genocide, to stop the killing of us. Like every day there's hundreds of Palestinians getting killed in Gaza and also in the West Bank. So protest, ask the officials in your governments to act and take actions to stop this. I hope this is not my last video, and no one is safe. No one actually is safe. No place in Gaza is safe. And here's the beautiful sunset from today with the sound of the Israeli drones.
خفوش خلاص شاطرة السلام عليكم. It's December the 12th, 2023, live from Gaza. Here in Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. 3 reasons why we are still optimistic and we see light at the end of the tunnel despite everything we are going through for the last 66 days. Number 1, if you remember, around 48 hours ago we spoke about raising the hashtag I stand with Palestine across all social media platforms. Great job. Guess what? TikTok alone has over 1 billion views for that hashtag. Hashtag I stand with Palestine. Keep up the great work there. Number 2, news has come from the Israeli media that the war cabinet and the Israeli government are currently pleading with the Egyptians, with the Qataris. Please, we are failing in achieving any kind of military objective through our land invasion attempts and striking targets here in Gaza Strip. We are losing a lot of IDF soldiers, and the internal pressure from the Israeli people is growing on the government, on the war cabinet. They are pleading to restart any kind of negotiation, to demand an immediate ceasefire and open all borders to ensure that their hostages all return safe. Number three is our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم ليستخلفنكم في الأرض, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised that those who remain steadfast and strive in His path, that He will ensure that they will remain in their lands, that His religion will reign amongst the whole world, that divine and correct political, economic and social systems will overthrow man-made materialistic systems that are corrupt. However, we need to remain steadfast, we need to remain patient. Alhamdulillah, we are trying to do that here together with your support. We see you, we love you. Keep up the great work. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
من غير بنج بعدين عملية من غير بنج لأنه فيش بنج شايف بس أصلا
في امان الله. مورنينج. يلا سيبها بس هي عشان انا كويس. خلاص كويس. خافش ولا هي انتهى. سيبها ترجع. وجود هذا العمل الطيب من الشباب المبارك حتى ننجز هذه العمليه الجراحيه بنجاح. والله دكاتره. الحمد لله. بس القصر فيها روح.
شوفوا كمية المطر اللي بتنزل على الناس. شوفوا شو صار عندكم انتم؟ يا عفو الله، الله يعينكم يا عم. مكان يعني دخلت على خيم النازحين. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل.
And I'm fighting for my people and their lives and liberation. If y'all think y'all gon' win, y'all got the wrong generation.
هات واحد. الله يعينك. محمود. اصل واحد راسي بعض خلاص قاعدوا في حدثتين انا صغار اعطوني حدثتين هي اعطوني حدثتين اعطوني في ثلاجه واحد خذها السيجاره
It is December 12th. I have updates for today. If I miss anything, please comment it. Abu Yusuf al-Najjar Hospital in Rafah has shared updates in regards to health in Gaza. We have been receiving about 1,500 cases of intestinal diseases every day due to food shortages. Smallpox cases have been reported in children. Diarrhea and influenza are spreading among the displaced people in Rafah. There has been no transfer or travel of patients through the Rafah crossing today. We also have an update from a doctor at Al-Kuwait Hospital in Gaza. Gaza is experiencing a humanitarian disaster and hundreds of patients are dying in hospitals due to simple reasons. Epidemics and many diseases have spread widely. More than 10,000 people are missing and 40,000 are injured. The IOF targeted 2 homes in Rafah by airstrike, martyring 24 people. And this happened in just the past few hours. The bombing of a car by IOF in Khan Yunis has martyred and injured many Palestinians. 7 people were injured in Nusayrat refugee camp after the IOF bombed a home. The head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says Palestinians in Gaza are pleading for an end to this hell on earth. Back in Gaza, endless deepening tragedy. People are everywhere, live in the street, need everything. They plead for safety and for an end to this hell on earth. Medical staff at Kamal Adwan Hospital were martyred today. IOF stormed the hospital under heavy gunfire and artillery shelling. Tanks pushed deeper at the gates and the entire facility is under heavy bombardment. There are confirmed reports from a source on the ground that some of the medical staff inside the hospital were martyred inside. Some patients with severe injuries inside the hospital have died due to the constant power outages and a severe shortage of medical supplies. Loudspeakers are being used to call anyone aged above 15 to come out of the building with their hands in the air. From what we understood from our source, IOF will blindfold them, strip them of their clothes, and take them to undisclosed areas for interrogation. This is very similar to what happened in Khalifa School and the other 2 UNRWA schools in the past few days, where all males were blindfolded and taken to undisclosed areas for interrogation. And keep in mind that the maternity ward at Kamal Adwan Hospital was targeted the other day and 2 mothers were killed. And right now there are 12 children in the ICU and there are 6 premature babies in incubators. This situation is becoming more and more terrifying by the second. It should have never come to this. We should have had a ceasefire. We must continue speaking up. We must continue amplifying the voices of those who are in Gaza. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. So I attempted to post a video earlier about a Telegram channel that is being run by the IOF, and of course this app put it up for a minute and then took it down. It's now under review. Last time they did this, it didn't get pushed out to anybody. The video just failed completely. So I'm going to try and tell you guys about this Telegram channel again. I'm not going to stop talking about it. So a report in the Israeli newspaper Haaretz says the army is misleading the public on Telegram channels. The report says the Israeli army is operating a channel called 72 Uncensored, which posts graphic pictures of. The channel was created 2 days after October 7th. And it says the posts are exclusive content from the Gaza Strip, and it encourages its over 5,000 followers to share the pictures and videos. And then on October 14th, a video was shared of an IOF vehicle. Please read this so I don't have to say it out loud. I don't want to get this taken down. And then they titled it "Exclusive Video of a Good Night. Don't forget to share and repost." Now the IOF continues to deny that they operate the channel, but someone anonymously, an official, said that the army was responsible for operating it. And here's the thing, it's nothing new. They've been recording the atrocities that they commit for a very, very long time. A lot of us have seen the videos, the pictures, all of this evidence year after year after year prior to October 7th. And that video that they posted on October 14th, that's also nothing new. And it's also not just the IOF, it's also the Israeli settlers that participate in these things as well. This was just in September of this year. And then this was back in 2015. And they very comfortably, for decades now, have been, taking videos and pictures of what they've been doing and posting it online. So them starting a channel 2 days after October 7th, dedicated to doing the exact same thing, is not shocking. And they claim that they're doing this to H members, but we know that they do this to any and every Palestinian, because look what they've done to children over the years. I want you guys to be aware of that channel. I want you guys to be aware of what they have been doing and what they continue to do so publicly and so shamelessly. And this app has continuously tried to silence me about it. This is my 4th account, you guys. I've talked about all of these incidents every single fucking year, every single month, every single week, the atrocities that they commit. And without a doubt, this app attempts to take me down.
Hello everybody, today is Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 at around 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and here are some of the latest updates coming out of Palestine. After forcing a siege around it, the ITF have now been raiding the Kamal Adwan hospital. The hospital has been relentlessly attacked all week via airstrike, and on Monday, a bomb hit the maternity ward, resulting in the killing of 2 women and their children, as well as the amputation of another woman's feet. Today, the ITF rounded up the hospital's medical teams and displaced men into the courtyard. Ahmed Al-Kahla, the director of the hospital, reporting that there were 65 cases of infections, 12 children in intensive care, 6 premature babies, 100 medical personnel, and 3,000 displaced people at the hospital. There were also some reports stating that he was arrested. The UN Special Rapporteur on Food, Michael Fakiri, has said, quote, every single Palestinian in Gaza is going hungry, end quote. He also warns that we are witnessing a genocide, specifically using that language. Human Rights Watch official has said that the, quote, inhumane treatment, end quote, of Palestinian detainees who are documented as having been stripped and blindfolded in public, quote, amounts to a war crime, end quote. Additionally, ITF raids have still continued throughout all of the West Bank, including in the areas of West Hebron, where heavy gunfire was heard and recorded late last night. They also searched homes and seized vehicles in the area. Raids in West Ramallah and South Nablus. 15 people were arrested in the town of Silwad in northeast Ramallah. Several were detained in the town of Samu. Olive fields in the town of Qasr and Urta in South Nablus were vandalized by ITF forces and settlers, and footage showed them harvesting olives, then cutting the trees down or destroying the trees completely. Raids were also reported in Bethlehem and Der Belut in South Kilkilia. Yesterday, elderly Jewish pro-Palestinian activists chained themselves to the iron fence of the White House, police officers since having arrested a handful of the women protesters. Footage has started to be released showing the aftermath of attacks in Khan Yunis, as well as a separate attack in Deir el-Balah. Both of them are absolutely horrific and show people being carted off to the hospital. UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk has made a statement saying, quote, if you look at the humanitarian situation at the moment, it is so precarious. It is on the verge of well beyond breakdown, end quote. The World Health Organization's Eastern Mediterranean Regional Office has reported that 4 of their staff are still being detained after they were deployed on a WHO-led mission to move patients from the El-Shifa hospital. They were detained on November 22nd. Overnight and earlier in the day, the ITF attacked Jenin, though it's still unclear if this specifically was caused by a drone attack or a sniper shooting. The death of 7 people have now been reported and confirmed. One of these killings included a 13-year-old boy who died in his father's arms as the ITF blocked them from getting to a hospital while he was sick and injured. And more has slowly been coming out of the area, so I'll report on that further as we get that news. In the last 24 to 48 hours, at least 24 people were killed in Rafah after ITF airstrikes hit 2 homes in the area. Children have been reported amongst those who were killed. Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki said at a UN event marking the 75th anniversary of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, quote, they, meaning Palestinians, are starving because of Israel's deliberate use of starvation as a weapon of war against the people it has occupied, end quote. He has also stated, quote, Gaza is undergoing a campaign of genocide where a Palestinian child is killed every 6 minutes, end quote. Wael Arafat, who is 28 years old, is on his 50th day of hunger striking. He is demanding that the UK government help stop the bombardment of Gaza. He is no longer able to walk, although can still speak, stating, quote, I know I might die. I know something could happen to my health. I don't want to die. I'm doing this for my own people who have been suffering. Every person in Gaza is my brother and sister, end quote. Wael is from Deir el-Balah in Gaza and has lost almost all of his family due to airstrikes that has happened not only in this round where he lost his sister and her children, but also when he was younger, when he lost his parents and then moved to the UK when he was 12 years old. He has lost a little bit over 44 pounds since his hunger strike began at the end of October. Only 11 out of Gaza's 36 hospitals still remain partially functioning, as there has been relentless attacking on the medical system of Gaza since October 7th. Also, it's important to note that many people are not being allowed to get to hospitals, as we just heard about this 13-year-old boy who was killed because he wasn't allowed to get there. Doctors Without Borders, also known as MSF in Palestine, has reported that a surgeon was shot and injured by an ITF sniper while he was in the El Auda hospital. The hospital has been under a complete siege since December 7th. Footage taken by ITF soldiers themselves has now come out on social media showing them bombing a UNRWA school in Beit Hanan. Also, a separate UNRWA school at the Jabalia refugee camp was destroyed after being raided by these soldiers. Government media office in Gaza has now released an updated list of the 86 names and photos of journalists who have been killed by the ITF's attack since October 7th. This does not include the names of their friends and families who have also been reported to be targeted, attacked, and killed by the ITF as well. It has been reported that 100 people, if not more, have been arrested in Jenin. And according to reports by the Wall Street Journal, Israel has begun to flood Hamas tunnels with seawater, which, as I said in a previous update, will cause complete structural damage to many of the residential buildings in the area, let alone the harm that it'll cause to civilians. Also, as has been said time and time again, the hostages that Israel is saying that they're doing all of this for have been shown to stay in tunnels and be moved through the tunnels. So if we're flooding them with seawater, what's happening to them? Obviously, Israel doesn't give one fuck about the people of Gaza, but the hostages that they claim to be doing this for are just as much at risk by these floodings of seawater. Additionally, as I had said in a prior report, there have been multiple critiques by the families of hostages, as well as hostages who have already been released, of Netanyahu and the Israeli government for how they are treating the hostages. Most of them have reported that they were far more scared to be killed by Israeli bombardment than they ever were by Hamas. Sorry, none of that was news, it was just me ranting. Back to the news. The Forward Observations Group is an American private mercenary company who published photos of mercenaries fighting alongside the ITF. And for our last update today, the UN General Assembly did meet and pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire. 153 countries voted in favor, 10 against, and 23 abstained. The US and Israel were amongst those who voted against. And that brings me to the end of the updates that I have for you all today. Just a reminder that these do not at all cover all of the news coming out of the area, just that which I wrote down, reported on, and found most important myself. Please, please, please refer to the sources that I leave in the comments to check your own news for yourself and get all of the updates that are coming out of the area. There's an action toolkit in my bio with dozens of links that you can interact with in order to help those in Palestine, Sudan, DRC, and Tigray. And again, if there's anything else that you think that I missed in today's news updates or that you think I should add to my link tree, please comment them down below. We need to remain steadfast in our solidarity and continue to make more and more noise as things have only gotten significantly worse. Each of these updates I make just horrify me even more. I can't even believe half the things that I'm saying at this point. Please take action, please use your voice, and know that no matter what you do, everything counts and everything matters. There's no such thing as something too small. Thank you to everyone who has continued to use their voice and their platform, no matter how big or small it is, and keep that energy up, okay, y'all? From the river to the sea, catch you in the next one.
Motaz was almost assassinated last night, guys. They're targeting the remaining journalists that are giving us all the evidence against the Israeli government and what they're doing to the Palestinian people. Last night, Motaz posted that they shot a sniper, shot at almost hitting his head. Guys, these people would do anything to wipe out all these journalists and anybody that has evidence of their atrocities. It's so sickening to me. Honestly, I'm just like, every day, some days I'm like angry. Some days I'm like super sad. And then some days I'm like both. And these few days, I'm like, it's been 2 months. December is about to be over. It's going to be 3 months of this whole genocide. And the fact that the Zionists and these politicians are saying that using even the term genocide it's concerning and we shouldn't use the term genocide, then what is it? Tell us, what is it? You are wiping out an entire civilization, an entire nation, and you say we cannot even use the word genocide because that's outrageous and we shouldn't do that. And then you said we should condemn from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. My God, like, guys, they make my blood boil. I'm so angry sometimes because I cannot believe as a humanity we are watching a genocide and the oppressor is getting away. Nobody's saying anything. And they're just coming up with more lies and more lies and more lies. May Allah punish you guys in this world and the next one.
If you woke up wondering, hey, I wonder what the Israeli settlers in the West Bank are up to. Well, here's your answer. This is a tweet from Israeli human rights group Yesh Din. It says, earlier today, dozens of settlers celebrated the holiday of Hanukkah by stealing crops from Palestinian-owned olive trees outside the village of Awarta. After the theft, which was escorted by Israeli soldiers, the settlers proceeded to cut down several trees. Now, if you're thinking, that is absolutely insane, there's no way that this is real, there's a video. So in this video, you see that this settler family, they've gone on a family outing. There you've got the mom, the dad, the kids, and here they are hitting the trees with a stick to bring the olives down. Then the dad, along with his kids, then they start putting the actual olives into bags. So they put the olives into bags, and then there he is carting the bag off towards their vehicle. So that is them stealing the olive harvest, the crops from those trees. There his kid opens the door for him and he puts it into the car. And then once they're done, because stealing the actual olive harvest wasn't enough, they start cutting down the tree. They start sawing down the branches of these trees, causing irreparable damage that you can see here. And there's something really important to note, is that in the beginning of the video, you can see here, that is an armed, uniformed Israeli border police officer. They operate in the occupied West Bank, just like the Israeli military, to protect the Israeli settler population. So as these settlers are committing this crime, they're stealing the crops from Palestinian trees and then cutting them down, they are doing this all under the watchful eye and the protection of the Israeli border police officers. There's so many levels of evil to this. First is that since October 7th, Palestinians have basically been caged in to their different locales, to their towns, their villages, their cities, and they haven't been able to move around as freely to access their land. And October is the olive harvest season. So what ended up happening is a lot of Palestinians trapped in by Israeli checkpoints were unable to access their land and go around and harvest their olives. And so, as we saw in this video, settlers basically took it upon themselves to take advantage of that and steal the crops from these olives before cutting down the olive trees, which is the next part of why this whole thing is so evil. Because these settlers didn't stop at just stealing the crops. There's a reason why they cut down these trees to make them unusable, so that the Palestinian farmers who spent decades probably caring for these trees and tending to them can no longer use them anymore. And if you know anything about Palestinian tradition and Palestinian culture, olive trees are extremely sacred in Palestinian culture. They're a sacred symbol of Palestinian steadfastness on their land, and they also serve as sustenance for Palestinian farmers who rely on these olive trees and their crops to sustain themselves, their families, and their communities throughout the year. And this is not a one-off occurrence or a rare occurrence. Israeli settler attacks on Palestinians and their olive trees during the olive harvest season is a long-time practice of the Israeli settlers. This article here was written in 2021. For years and years and years, Israeli settlers take advantage of the olive harvest season to attack Palestinian farmers, to steal their crops, to cut their trees down, to burn their trees. I personally myself have reported on the olive harvest for so many years and have seen instances of Israeli settlers also injecting poison into the trees to completely kill the trees, rendering them useless. This is all part of a wider policy, a wider effort by the Israeli settlers to attack every aspect of Palestinian life. If you cannot attack them physically, then you attack their crops. And it's meant to create an environment where Palestinians are so threatened that they cannot even farm their crops safely. And it's meant to eventually drive Palestinians out and kick them off this land so that it then can be taken over by Israeli settlers. And it's important for us to know that these instances of settlers stealing olives and cutting down trees in the West Bank, that is not isolated from what is happening right now in Gaza. When Israel bombs Gaza, or when settlers in the West Bank cut down trees or steal the harvest of Palestinians, it's all part of the larger effort across the board to ethnically cleanse Palestinians and to clear them off this land to make way for Jewish settlement and for a Jewish majority state. From the West Bank to the Gaza Strip, Israel's identity as a Jewish state, as a Zionist state, is literally dependent. It is predicated on the removal of the Palestinians, of the indigenous people from that land. And so Israel and the state and its settlers will do whatever it takes to achieve that.
I want you to join me to laugh at this one. This is how the sky of Gaza looks like. These are not Israeli planes. These are surveillance British planes that Britain is providing to Israel in order to help to find the hostages. To find the hostages. The other surveillance planes are different from the Israeli buzzing planes. The Palestinians call it itszainablol. Their sole purpose is psychological torture, to make sound 24/7 and fly on the sky of Gaza in order to make Palestinians' lives as living hell. Just listen to them throughout the day. What's funny is the UK are claiming that they're not using the surveillance plane to feed the Israeli army with any intelligence information. They're solely using it to find the hostages. But Britain, the UK, are saying that even the UK, if came across any war crimes that Israel are committing in Gaza, they're not gonna provide it to the International Criminal Court. Let me read it again. The UK, if they come across any war crimes, they're not provide it to the International Criminal Court. So it's not enough for the UK to give political coverage for Israel to continue with its genocide and massacre in Gaza, but they also, if they find their wrongdoing, they will actively block it to getting any lights. And of course, I'm not surprised, but I'm just covering this news in order to show to those who are claiming that the West is the peak of democracy and human rights and, freedom. This is your freedom. This is what your freedom looks like complicity in war crimes.
The ceasefire resolution has been passed by the UN General Assembly 157-10. This resolution demands
I hate to burst everyone's bubble, but we need to understand the optics and the weight of that decision. Yes, the UN General Assembly voted yes to demand a ceasefire. That's true, and which is overwhelmingly yes. However, the UN General Assembly does not hold any weight or any force to force any country to abide by any law. The UN Security Council is what holds power and can demand countries to abide by international law and the Geneva Convention and all of that. You can look at the UN General Assembly, the country that voted yes and voted no, and which country abstained. You can look at the map as much as you want. You can look into details and see where governments stand for, where the morality of each government stand for, based off this list. However, it's not gonna change the reality. People still gonna suffer, gonna die, and nothing gonna change. I know it's depressing, but this is what we need to demand for. We need to demand a ceasefire from the UN Security Council. And as long countries like the UK and the US veto any decision that comes from the Security Council, nothing can change. Otherwise, Palestinians in Gaza will continue to suffer.
I know trying to reason with a Zionist is like talking to a wall, but let's try it anyway. The blue color is the number of Israelis killed by Hamas. The orange is the number of Palestinians killed. Let's look at the number over the years. Let's look at this year, 2023, where it says 277, and this is before the 7th. Israel killed 277 Palestinians before the 7th, and you wanted the Palestinians to just sit there and take it? Y'all are so despicable. You think that people should take ethnic cleansing lying down. People should not retaliate against ethnic cleansing of forced displacement. You think that people should allow colonization to happen to their country without any form of resistance. Y'all are disgusting.
TikTok for some reason doesn't like it when I celebrate this kind of news, so I'm just gonna let you know there's 80 less evil people in the world today, and that's a cause to celebrate.
Quick news updates of what has been happening in many different things regarding the situation in Gaza. Today, Zara released an official statement apologizing about its disgusting campaign, the campaign that was mocking the genocide in Gaza, and they said that this campaign was made in July before all the things happened in Gaza, and they apologized because of the protests and the boycotting that was called against Zara. Puma has also said that they are gonna end their contract with the Israeli national team, which means that the boycott is working. The boycott is causing those companies to lose so much money that they now have to take important decisions in their careers moving forward. Yemen announced a total ban on all Israeli ships passing through its coastline, forcing the ships to go all around Africa to be able to reach the coast of Israel, which costs them a lot of money. Israel is brutally attacking the south of Lebanon, and they started firing phosphoric bombs in the south of Lebanon, which is illegal worldwide. 25,000 is the number of children who have been orphaned in Gaza. You remember the 100 civilians that Israel took from the north of Gaza and stripped them out of their clothes? They took another 125, I believe, and this time they are including infants and women. The first ever mosque that was built in Gaza, which was 600 years ago, was destroyed by Israel last Friday on the holy day of Muslims. And these are all the updates and the major news titles, and hopefully this ends soon. We are still calling for a ceasefire.
So the IDF admits once again that they were lying. They admitted that up to 90% of those that have been detained and stripped in Gaza are civilians. For the last week, they continuously said that the individuals that were shown in these pictures, because these pictures have been circulating for about a week now, they continuously stated that these individuals had affiliations with Hamas and that this was all unnecessary because they're terrorists. Now they're saying 90%, I'm pretty sure it's 100%, but now they're saying 90% of these individuals that have been stripped, humiliated, tortured, are civilians. They were taken from areas in which they were trying to find safety. They were with their families. They were probably sick. Some may be disabled. None of that warrants this. And the IDF making a new lie, retracting it, and making a new one is strategic.
Guess who doesn't want a two-state solution? Israel. This is what their communication minister posted today, December 12th. This is the translation. We respect and cherish the President of the United States, Joe Biden, who went out of his way during the most difficult period of the state of Israel. This is true friendship. Yeah, because he's a Zionist. But we live here. This is our country, the historical estate of our ancestors. Not like they're from Europe or anything. There will be no Palestinian state here. We will never allow another state to be established between the Jordan and the sea. We will never go back to Oslo. And in the words of President Biden, the security of the Jewish people is at stake here. Definitely yes, the Palestinian state would endanger him. Thank you, President. They have made it clear they do not want a two-state solution. For 75 years, they have made that clear. But yet world leaders want to convince us that there's a possibility of a two-state solution. There wasn't one in South Africa. There wasn't one in America. After the Holocaust, did Germany do a two-state solution? No. They shipped them off. Hence, why we have the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians now. I didn't plan on talking about the white phosphorus that was used in Lebanon because they've been using it on Palestinians since the jump. But the remarks by John Kirby done pissed me off, so let's talk about it. The Biden administration is concerned about Israel's reported use of white phosphorus in Lebanon 2 months ago, National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby told reporters Monday. Yeah, you're so concerned to where you just send them more weapons and you're trying to get more approved by Congress. Okay, we've seen the reports, certainly concerned about that. We'll be asking questions to try to learn a little bit more. You're going to ask questions to try to learn a little bit more. Did they meant to target a bigger civilian population? They could have done it to where they didn't get caught. Like, what questions? He continues with the BS. Kirby stressed that the munitions aren't intended to be used to harm people. Oh, really? Obviously, anytime that we provide items like white phosphorus to another military, it is with the full expectation that it will be used in keeping with those legitimate purposes and in keeping with the law of armed conflict. We are talking about Israel. The same people who are ethnically cleansing Palestinians. The same people who have bombed schools. The same people who have bombed hospitals. The same people who have taken Palestinians out on the streets, stripped them down, and tortured them. What law of armed conflict are they abiding by? I'm so sick of the United States and the Biden administration playing in our faces while they're committing war crimes.
So I made a post about this yesterday and it got taken down immediately, so let's try again. If you're going to fake a hate crime to put a target on Muslims' backs or any other group, at least study these people. Know like the basics. Allah Akbar is what racists and Islamophobes like this lady write and say when they're mocking Muslims. Muslims actually say Allahu Akbar because that's proper grammar. So if you're going to lie, at least make your lie a little bit believable. There's 2 billion people and non-Muslims as well that tell you that this is what Islamophobes say, not Muslims. Israelis really are so pathetic, just like this lady, where they have been oppressing and occupying an entire population that speaks Arabic for so long and still do not know anything about them. To post fake ass shit like this when there's actual anti-Semitism out there. 0 out of 10.
You know what everyone should be concerned about? Everyone should be concerned about the fact that Zionists and Israelis and the US have convinced everyone in the world for so many years now that a group of people who have no tanks, no warplanes, no warships, and are literally fighting back with knockoff Birkenstocks are a threat to an entity that has tanks, warships, warplanes, and billions of dollars of funding from the US. That should be concerning to you because that requires a huge amount of propaganda, of lies, of systems that are built on fabrications for you to believe that after 20,000 people have been killed, 7,000 under the rubble, more than 50,000 injured with paralyzing, life-altering burns and injuries, people are freaking out more about a hypothetical genocide that no one called for, that we haven't seen any evidence of. It's hypothetical, totally fabricated, when a real actual genocide is being broadcast. That should infuriate you. You should be infuriated that there are conversations happening in higher education, in people's workplaces, on the news, in political circles about a hypothetical genocide. When real people are being massacred, we're being massacred. Open up your goddamn eyes. More than 20,000 people have been killed and 2.3 million people have had their whole lives uprooted. That is a real genocide and a real actual disaster. It's not hypothetical.
I asked my friend Nisreen in Gaza to take some clips of her day to do a day in the life vlog of what it's like to be in Gaza right now. And unfortunately, it's not a very pretty, relaxing influencer day in the life. Here's my friend Nisreen painting on the lids of some bottles because she couldn't find canvases. She's currently sheltering in Rafah with her family, and she told me that when her younger sister left the north, the only thing she packed was her paint and brushes because she loves art. This is Nisreen making bread from scratch. She actually had a cooking page before the genocide where she would make really good food, but now she's having to make it as a way of survival and not for the fun and aesthetics of it on social media. This is also another meal that they had the other day, just a bunch of water and canned vegetables. And to wrap up her day, she lays on the floor and tries to sleep in the midst of these horrifying sounds.
as soon as a ceasefire is called, our next battle will have just begun. So I want to make sure we're all clocked in and we know this. What I don't want to see happen is this start to fizzle out because the demands we have are a little more complex. Right now, it's really easy to be one unified loud voice shouting for the same thing. That's a ceasefire. But as soon as the ceasefire happens, our demands get a little more complex. And although they're complex, does not mean that we still can't be really loud and unified. So the first thing I want to challenge you with is make sure that you're following the voices on the ground because they will be crucial in telling us what they need next. Second, make sure you're following Palestinian voices. I know we've been seeing them on our feed, but if you haven't followed them, follow them now, okay? Because they're going to be crucial in giving us our next steps. I just want to do my part in trying to rally the people. I feel like that has been my role throughout this. My skill set is marketing. I understand the psychology of people. The easier it is for people to be on brand with the messaging, the louder they will be, the more confident they will be. So I propose that our next call to action is liberation and reparation. I feel like this high level covers everything underneath. We have many, many demands for what comes next. And honestly, some of us might even disagree on what those demands should look like. This is an age-old debate. Two-state solution, one-state solution. What should we do? Who should be the government? This is going to be complex, but that does not mean we can't still do it. Okay? So, liberation and reparation is what I'm proposing for this next chapter that we're about to go into, and listen to the voices on the ground and listen to the Palestinian voices on your feed, and we take our cues from them. What are we asking for? What are we fighting for? What is next? But high level, we know we want liberation and reparation for the Palestinian people.
Ladies and gents, I got a response from Mother Being. Woo! Let's go! Now it says, after making sure the first round of over 400,000 products reached Gaza, we finally announced our second round of donations. Guys, all the reposts, the spamming, the tagging, it worked. You see the power of social media. It's just a small step, by the way, so I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. But it's legit, it's their verified account, and I'm super excited. Guys, let's get in touch with these guys. If you've got a bit of money, let's send to This Is Mother Being on Instagram. And thank you once again, guys. It's not me, it's we. It's a we thing, it's a teamwork. We make it happen. Let's go.
Every accusation made by Israel is a confession. For months now, Israeli propagandists have been pushing the narrative that Hamas has committed mass grape. And yet, in all this time, they have not been able to bring a single shred of evidence forward. In the meantime, there's article after article and case after case of Israel committing grape and SA against Palestinians. Not just since October 7th, but for the past few decades. The director of the U.S. State Department shared a case that happened in August 2022, where the DCIP organization shared that a 13-year-old boy was raped in an Israeli prison. The next day, Israeli soldiers raided the DCIP, stole their computers, and labeled them a terrorist organization.
Stop calling the displacement of Palestinians an evacuation. An evacuation, by its very definition, is when you move people into an area of safety. Forcing people out of their homes under fear of death into an area that does not have water, food, heat, or shelter is not an evacuation, it is an extermination. Thank you.
Blood still stains when the sheets are washed. Sex don't sleep when the lights are off. Kids are still depressed when you dress them up. And syrup is still syrup in a sippy cup. He's still dead when you're done with the bottle. Of course it's a corpse that you keep in the cradle. Kids are still depressed when you dress them up. Syrup is still syrup in a sippy cup.
Everyone lost their fucking minds. How can one country control the United Nations?
The USA has used its power to veto a resolution 42 times alone in support of Israel. Let that sink in for a second. Altogether, they have vetoed about 84 resolutions, I think it is, and 42 of them have been in favour of Israel, to allow Israel to half of the USA's power is being put towards Israel and their illegal occupation of Palestine. Make it make sense.
Someone posted a picture of her breakfast yesterday, and it was this: a moldy orange. She and many other Palestinians are eating any fruit that they can find and just cutting the mold off. And in the caption, she says, "I know it's not good for my health, but what is the value of health in times like these?" It made me think about all of the other Palestinians that we've seen over the last over 60 days that beg and plead for support from us, and we're watching as they get thinner and thinner and have to turn to more and more dire straits just to find food to survive, when surviving is hard enough. It really makes me sit with the fact that no matter how high the death toll gets right now, even if there was a ceasefire called right this very moment, that number will get higher still, because people are starving. And even if we stop the count, maybe a month, maybe even 2 from now, people will continue to die from the actions happening right now. Like, they have to survive the bombs now so they can make it to find something to eat. And if they can make it to find something to eat, they can't even worry if it's going to be good or not, which means that if a bomb doesn't get you, an immediate starvation doesn't get you, months and months of eating moldy old fruit might. This brutality goes so much deeper than the obvious violence of bombs and white phosphorus and sniper rifles, and the impact is going to be felt so much longer than I worry a lot of people's short attention spans is going to rightfully give it credit.
Boycotting works. Puma has to drop their sponsorship of the Israeli football team after all the pressure that the BDS movement put on them. Quick reminder, these are the companies that we're currently boycotting off the official BDS list. As you can see, Puma is on the consumer boycott target list, so just keep this in mind and keep boycotting these companies because it works.
This is a photo of one of my younger children who got beat in the face and neck. Unfortunately, I cannot show you photos of the other child whose face was blackened and cut open. That is what Zionism is doing to me here in the United States. So never fear. You've got all of white Christian America on your side. For now.
I want to talk about white nihilism. I see a lot of folks saying, oh, we can't talk about land back. We can't talk about an end to the crumbling tentative entity. We can't talk about an end to the illegitimate Zionist settler colonial regime because it's not feasible or realistic, and we need to be rational and we need to be strategic. And to that I say, I am not co-signing your colonial fiction. Your rationality is a colonial reproduction. It is a Western reproduction of limitation that you impose on yourself. And the fact that all you can imagine is violence, and the fact that all you can imagine is the status quo, shows that A, you benefit from the status quo, and you are threatened by the status quo changing. And the third thing that it shows me is that you are trapped in a small-minded colonial frame. And part of decoloniality and decolonization is the radical imagination of saying, I will not let the colonizer dictate and tell me what is or isn't possible. I can envision futures that go beyond violence. I can envision futures that go beyond white nihilism. Despair is not an option. It is not an option. Liberation is inevitable. The colonizer will not dictate what is or isn't possible. The colonizer can only project outward violence, not freedom. And it is not on the colonizer to say what can happen and what can't happen. A ceasefire is realistic, but ending the Zionist settler colony isn't. And what I say is the Zionist settler colony is fucking crumbling. It is ending. Palestine is not only going to be free in our lifetime, it's going to be free in the next year. 100%. That is inevitable. It is unquestionable. And if anyone tells you otherwise, I say, don't come at me with your small-minded, violent colonial frame. Just because you are materially invested in upholding the status quo doesn't mean that I'm going to co-sign your fiction. I am not small-minded enough to think that liberation is not possible. What we believe about ourselves becomes our reality, and I believe in complete liberation and land back for all oppressed populations and all people throughout the earth. I will not co-sign white nihilism. I will not co-sign liberal fictions. I will not co-sign small-mindedness. It's fucking disgusting. It's delusional. It's your colonial projection that is enacting this violence, and it is our radical imagination that is tapping into the present moment awareness of liberation that will reveal the truth about our existence, which is our innate freedom. So if anyone tells you that ending the Zionist settler colony is not realistic, especially after Palestinians came out with 7 demands, and they say that only demand 1 and 2 are realistic, I will tell you that your violence is not realistic. Your white nihilism is not realistic. Your small-mindedness is not realistic. And I'm not going to fucking sit in it or co-sign it. We're going to win.
Here are some comparisons to understand the scale of Israel's destruction in Gaza. In just 1 month, Israel dropped the equivalent of 2 nuclear bombs on Gaza. And this article was from November 1st, so at this point it's probably almost double that. And many of these bombs are so big that you could be standing 3 football fields away and you still might die. And not to mention that these are being dropped in one of the most densely populated places on earth, made even more dense by the mass displacement of 1.8 million Palestinians. Israel is dropping bombs so fast that an EU diplomat has said that if it wasn't for the US sending them more weapons, they would have to end the war within days. Which Joe Biden is more than happy to do, even bypassing Congress to do so, despite the fact that the Pentagon failed their 6th audit in a row and can't account for trillions of dollars worth of assets. At this point, over 18,000 Palestinian civilians have been killed, and a study has found that the proportion of civilian deaths in this conflict is greater than any other war in the 20th century, and that's including both world wars. Over 60% of buildings in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed, and that's a level of destruction greater than what Germany experienced during World War II. We are seeing World War levels of destruction in just the span of 2 months. This is a graph of US military aid to Israel. This is the imperialist war machine at work in real time, funded by our tax dollars. This is why we're all protesting, why we're all striking. Not only for a ceasefire now, but ultimately for a free Palestine. Because this machine doesn't stop unless we make it stop.
A 4-series investigative documentary on how the Israeli lobby spies in America was supposed to be released in 2018, but the president of the Zionist Organization of America pressured Al Jazeera to bury it. Back in 2017, Al Jazeera released a 4-series 25-minute each documentary on how the Israeli lobby spies in Britain. This 2017 British documentary was such a bombshell that the Israeli ambassador in London had to make a public apology and a high-ranking diplomat being recalled to Tel Aviv. The US documentary was officially going to be released by Al Jazeera, but there was a fierce battle by Qatar on one side and Saudi Arabia and the UAE on the other side for US support in the feud that began in 2017. Because the pro-Israel lobby in the United States has so much influence on Middle Eastern foreign policy, Saudi Arabia and the UAE were worried that if it was broadcasted, they were going to lose US support. Then, Morton Klein, president of the Zionist Organization of America, flew to Doha and said he was delighted to see the documentary buried. It goes to show that the documentary's suppression says a lot about its explosive revelations. It's pretty insane. They had this undercover reporter named Kleinfield work with the Israeli lobby for 5 months, grab cocktails with them, share all of their secrets. He even filmed the conversations using a hidden camera. The pro-Israel lobby in the United States has an intense spy network on American citizens. It was initially estimated around $2 million a year back in 2018. This isn't anything new though. Israel has a long history of spying in the United States. Back in 2018, Israel was accused of planting mysterious spy devices around the White House. 3 former U.S. officials of Trump's administration said that Israel was most likely behind the placement of cell phone surveillance devices that were found near the White House and other sensitive locations around Washington. They were miniature surveillance devices known as Stingrays, and they were meant to spy on President Trump. And again, back in 2021, Israeli spyware was used to spy on U.S. officials, journalists, activists, and politicians. It was considered a serious counterintelligence and security risk to U.S. personnel. For some reason, Israel's aggressive spying in the U.S. is mostly hushed up. The most insane story is when an Israeli spy was found in the air duct of Vice President Al Gore's room. But because it was done by Israel, it was quickly hushed up by U.S. officials. It's interesting to note the behind closed doors relations between Israel and America are frenemies even in the best of times.
Hanukkah is different. It's been 65 years since the deadliest day of the Jewish people since the Holocaust. 65 years. You know, after October 7th, my father returned to his kibbutz to salvage what he could from his home. What was left was the rubble and ruin. The home, which he had hidden in with his wife and his daughter for 20 hours before being rescued.
Joe Biden's father died 21 years ago. That's the TikTok.
نعيدكن بالعيد بنسألكن ليش ما في عنا الأعياد ولا الزينة يا عالم أرضي محروقة أرضي حرية مسروقة أزمانة عم تحلم عم تسأل الأيام وين الشمس الحلوة ورفوف الحمام يا عالم أرضي محروقة أرضي حرية مسروقة أرض صغيرة مثل صغيري أعطونا السلام وأعطونا الطفولة.
Don't forget that it's not just about free Palestine, but the Palestine that's freeing us along the way.